And you don't want to have to do them the way that they did you.
Amen.
So instead of distancing himself, Joseph closes the gap. And I'm not saying there aren't consequences to how we treat people. There are. But what's important in the end is God's purpose, not our feelings.
Amen.
And that kind of ability, y'all, doesn't come just naturally. You just don't get that. You're not necessarily born with that. That comes because you spent some time in the presence of God. You got to close the gap between you and God before you can actually close it between you and others who may have hurt you in the human space.
Right.
And we can spend time with folk who've hurt us after we spent time with the one who loves us.
Amen.
And I'm not necessarily calling for a family reunion right now. That's not what I'm saying. I'm suggesting that life is too short for you to hold on to your past pain.
Amen. Yes, Lord.
Look at somebody, tell them, let it go.
Let it go.
Because you can't change what happened.
You can't change what
But
happened.
you can choose whether you're going to be bitter or better.
Thank you.
And when you look at your own life, you can see for yourself how your unexplained difficulty has literally worked out in your favor. You want to know why? Because in the words of Joseph, what they meant for evil, God meant for good. And that doesn't absolve you from responsibility. It ties you to it, beloved, because to whom much is given, much is required. And God always expects you to remember that whatever you do, you're doing it for them. Oh, that's the question. If we're required to do it for others, then how should we plan for our financial future? For those who are coming behind us, people who we've been charged with to be an assistance to. Well, this particular text seems to suggest to us that one of the first things we need to do is look at it from the big picture.
Amen.
I mean, the truth is there's more to life, y'all, than just chasing the bag.
Okay.
God trusts us to be a steward with what we have. And he wants us to steward it not for our own personal success, but for his glory. And it doesn't come from what we get for ourselves, but oftentimes it comes from what we do for others. So when Joseph revealed to his brothers who he was, they were literally in shock and actually afraid, probably is more apropos, because now they finally have to come face to face with what they did in the past. And the good news for them is that while they hadn't yet dealt with it, Joseph had. I wish I had time. I'd pause right here and say some people ought to be glad that you dealt with some of the stuff they did to you, because you didn't hug them when y'all got reunited just because you loved them. You hugged them because you did some work on some of the stuff that happened to you in your past. You hugged them because you were able to reconcile your trauma with God's plan, and you realize it ain't never been about them, it's been about him. And what God has for you, it is for you. Joseph understood that, because while we do not know exactly when it happened, we do know that at some point he became clear, I got a purpose that's bigger than my past pain. And so when he reunites with them, he doesn't put them on trial. He could have, but he doesn't. Instead, he tried to ease their anxiety by telling them not to be upset, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. Beloved, the decisions that you make today affect more than just you. Hear me. How you manage your money, emotions, and possessions will impact the people coming behind you. And if you handle it right, even the people who hurt you in the past, you'll be in position to benefit them from what you went through. Even though they did you wrong, at some point, they'll be the ones who need to reap from what you did right. But they'll never know what it really cost you. They'll never understand the pain you had to endure. They'll never know fully the betrayal you had to experience just to get where you are. Many of us will never know what our ancestors really dealt with just for us to be here today. We'll never know the pain of our parents and grandparents. We'll never know the midnights of struggle they went through. We'll never know all the times that they had to lay prostrate on the floor praying for God to provide for us. We'll never know fully all of the dark nights that they had to deal with just so we could be here today. Let me encourage you, don't take for granted what others did just for you to be where you are. It cost them something. It cost something to get where you are. It cost something to open the doors for where you walk through today. It cost something for you to sit in some of the seats we sit in today. It cost something for the degrees we get today. It cost somebody something along the way just for you to be where you are.